Today, Advanced Studies Issues has the honor to receive Professor Kimberly Schimmel, Kent State University. Welcome, Professor Kim.
Hello, it's nice to be here.
And also we have in this program today Professor Elena Altman from the Faculty of Physical Education here at Unicamp.
Hello.
Well, we received the Center for Advanced Studies here at Unicamp. Has a center group dedicated to the study of sport in general. And we have the opportunity to receive Professor Schimmel to stay here for several days so that she had a lot of activities here. Professor Schimmel is a Vice President of the International Sociological Sport Association. She's a leading scholar in the field of sociology of sport, and she accepted to stay with us for a while. So, Professor Kim, what was your impression in the few days we stayed here in Brazil, and particularly at Unicamp, about the Brazilian scholars and also public?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, it was a great pleasure and an honor to be here. It's a wonderful opportunity for me, too, to learn from the scholars and also the students here at Unicamp. The Center for Advanced Studies is a model that we very much like to replicate at Kent State. It's a model that brings together scholars from all kinds of areas. And so that's very informative for individual subjects. Also, the group at Advanced Sport Studies is one that has a very nice reputation for social studies and for asking critical questions about sport. And so it's a great opportunity for me to be here to learn as well.
Thank you for coming.
One of the themes you have studied is the relation between sports and the image of the cities or even the countries. Could you please talk a little bit about how sports can affect the image of a city or of a country?
Yes, well, particularly in these mega events and the ones that are coming up in Brazil, give Brazil, and even maybe even more globally, the global South, an opportunity that is sort of unique and unlike the opportunities that have come in the past. Mostly these mega events have occurred, of course, in the global North. And so many eyes will be upon Brazil and have been, at least in the Pan Am Games in 2007, and will be upcoming, both with FIFA and, of course, with the Olympic Summer Games. And so these events give opportunity, particularly for politicians, for people in business, and even in the tourism industries, an opportunity to create an image for a city, to create one and then broadcast it globally so that people maybe who weren't familiar, perhaps with say, Rio beyond its beautiful beaches, will be subjected to a new image. And that image will be created very, very carefully by politicians, business leaders, and probably people in the tourism industry.
What do you think about the scholarship about the games in Brazil and, well, in countries like Brazil in general? Do you think that there is already some kind of scholarly study about the impact of these events for the different countries? For the countries and even for the cities. And if you look more locally and understanding, of course, that these cities in which these events take place, Johannesburg perhaps, or Cape Town, maybe Rio, are very, very complicated places. They're large, complex, vast, with a number of different social groups. And so these events don't really have an impact on the entire city. They may have an impact in certain areas of the city. But cities are primarily, these ones are too vast. People will be looking very, very closely at Rio to see, to have an opportunity to study this in a different context, and on a different continent, and in a different, perhaps political and economic system. So it's a wonderful opportunity for scholars.
We are talking about the mega events we are having in Brazil, and one of the reasons for Brazilian government to bring these events to Brazil are the supposed benefits they would bring to the city or to the country, but especially to the city where the events will take place. However, in your researches, you have shown how this idea can be refuted by some social science research in the last 2 decades. Could you please talk about this a little bit?
Yes, of course. People who do social science research into these events can be sort of divided into various areas. Economists will try to find specifically what the economic impact is in a city, and does that economic impact sort of multiply out across the city, or is it captured into certain industries? And all of the economists who have done these studies have shown that whatever economic benefit there is usually is very, very specific. It's either in a very specific area, it doesn't leak out into the economy, as the economists would say, and that it's very short-lived. And so over the long term, there really is shown to be actually no economic benefit over the long term for these large events. Others who study, say, the politics or the urban development of these areas, of these events, will point to the fact that maybe some of the city is developed, maybe the airport is expanded, which is a very, of course, nice thing, and some infrastructure is improved, maybe bridges and roads, but those will be very, very limited. They'll be limited to the people who can afford cars to be on the roads, who can afford the airline tickets to actually utilize the airports. And so, again, these benefits are very specific and they're captured in very small areas. Part of the reason is that these are the areas then that will be projected across the world as the image for all of the city. When of course it isn't. It's just this image in this specific area. So sport studies scientists have shown again and again around the world that these benefits are extremely limited, extremely short-term, and probably are more symbolic than anything.
And how about the impact on the poor population of the areas? Do we have examples in Beijing and or even in South Africa in relation to the Soccer Cup? So what can we expect about the impact on poor people?
Another word for impact, of course, is legacy, and Brazilian scholars particularly have contributed a great deal to the legacy research. What is the legacy? What is left over from these events? And of course, legacy can be either positive or negative. And one of the negative legacies is, of course, as you were pointing to, the forced eviction and population movement of poor people who are in a place where they're not seen to be productive, they're not contributing in some kind of way to the economy. And those people, large populations, have been moved forcibly. And this has been the case in every Olympic Games for the last 20 years. There's documented evidence of this. And it's happening now in Rio. There are a lot of video campaigns that are taking place to show this forced displacement to the rest of the world. And the rest of the world is taking notice. So Brazil and Rio is a real test case for what kind of reaction will there be? Will there maybe this will generate global resistance? Maybe it will generate some global resistance to the Olympic movement, which is growing. Actually, it's very very prominent in many parts of the world. So you're right that while some people in the city may benefit a great deal, I mentioned people who use airports, the people who would like to shop in the downtown, or maybe some tourists who just stay in that area. Large populations of people are burdened very, very heavily because of these games, and a lot of people are taking notice.
So it's a very mixed picture.
Very mixed, yeah.